Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. For the listener, we are in the island of Crete in Greece. Not too far, the ocean waves will crash. The wind is blowing. It's a beautiful afternoon. I'd like to give you some information. I would like to extend the last channel. But first, I wish to celebrate the ones in front of me. It would seem in a group like this that you would have those who would truly understand that this is a message from the creative source. And yet there are those who are simply enjoying the energy. And the channeling, they're not too sure of. Even in a group like this, who would come to join in these celebrations, there are still those who would wonder about the correctness, the profundity, or even if it's real. And so I want to celebrate those who are seeking the truth in energy in their own way, and are going to get answers that are profound whether they believe this or not. And that's part of what I want to talk about. There's something beautiful here. There is a process going on right here. We've never identified the process, and it's a worldwide process. But before we do that, let us talk a little bit about Crete. This island is one of the largest in the Mediterranean. It is volcanic. It is the seat, the origin, of Zeus. Take a look at the importance of this island to Greece. Now, I want you to look at the importance of this island to archaeology for Europe. But what I'm going to tell you now, you may not be aware of. On this island were some of the oldest civilizations known to Europe. Right here. I want you to start connecting the dots yet again. Isn't it unusual that a civilization 6,000 to 7,000 years old would be here and not on the mainland? They point at this island and they say, here is some of the oldest artifacts we find of any civilization of Europe. And I smile and I say, does this remind you of a Lemurian? We have told you repeatedly of the process of the exit from Lemurian, the island syndrome. Those in their Akash who are so used to setting up things on an island, and they did it again. Now, let's go back 7,000 years and review what was here. It was the beginning of you, not the beginning of humanity. You were just coming out of another phase where you had destroyed yourselves yet again. Now, I've told you that before. Humanity is 50, 60, 70,000 years old. You are only in the last 15,000 year group. If you want to know the oldest in Europe, the Indus Valley, if you want to call that Europe. And that's almost 13,000. And yet there was so much more before that. Humans will say, well, why can't we find it here? There were probably other civilizations before the one they discovered here, and that is absolutely true. An island has an interesting situation. It wipes itself clean with volcanic action, with waves, with wind, with rain. and very little remains after a certain amount of time. On an island, there's really no reason to dig. In fact, if you do, sometimes you'll only find water. And so there aren't many ruins on an island. So there may never be a credible validation of what I'm telling you. So let's just go with known history. Again, I ask, isn't it interesting that the civilization here was the forerunner to most of Europe? Isn't it interesting that Zeus, being one of the major, if not the major gods, was here? The mythology has then the top chief here on this island. That's something else to look at. Why wasn't he on the mainland? All of this leads me to something. Things are not always as they seem. I would like to take you on a trip. And the trip is one of realization. On the planet at the moment, you have major belief systems, less than 5. Each one of them competes for that which they say is the way to God. Each one. In a linear fashion, they build boxes around this, and each one says that they have the only way to God. Indeed, there is monotheism. But if you look at the fundamentals of each belief system, they will say the others are wrong. They will say we are right. Let me tell you why. Perhaps you've never connected the dots here. It's a beautiful, beautiful message. The reason they are so sure that their ways, their ancients, their masters, their prophet is the only way is because they have results. They have good information. They have wonderful healings in all of the temples that they have. Whether you call it a church or a synagogue, no matter what, they have healing. So they have this marvelous result, and they feel the love of God, all of them. They feel the same tingles that some of you do when you sit and you meditate and you call upon the creative source. They may be facing a certain direction on a prayer rug. Believe me, they feel it from head to toe. And each one of them says, because of that, they know they've got the source. They're told, by the way, not to look at the others. It is a very survivalist system, very much like humanity has had forever. Don't look around, stay in your group. That's the survival. Circle with protection. An old linear system. But dear ones, among the ancient linear old energy of all of this are the beautiful healings that happen with them all. I want to extend what we told you before. We were in Delphi, sometimes called Delphi, in the lower temple of the goddess. And I told you something that I want to extend today. And I want you to connect the dots from the mythology of Greek to current day. Something was going on that is a process. Logically, 4D brain, left one, I want you to think about what was going on and come to your own conclusion. If you had 12, 1, 2, 3 mythological gods They were completely and totally invisible because they didn't exist. You might say they were the evolution of spirituality. They were where children start when it comes to learning what the Creator is all about. And so they were invisible. And you might say, well, if they were invisible, how in the world did they ever figure out how to talk to them? How in the world did they ever communicate? How did they ask for things? How did they get information? And we say to you, you mean just like today? Just like today. Did you know that this island is known for music? How did they come up with an evolutionary, elegant system of music when there were invisible gods that didn't exist? How did they get the channeling in Delphi from invisible gods that didn't exist? How did they create painting, poetry, science that literally came out of the ground at them that they got? How did they get advice to live their lives, to defend their country, and win the battles, if it was all fake, invisible, and nonsense? I ask you this, how did it happen? How could it happen? It's the same process as is today. I'll tell you this, the loving God that created this planet, the wind that you feel right now, the ocean that you look at and that you sing to, that particular God knows who you are, knows your name. And you are a piece of that. Therefore, when you go into a state of asking, of wiping away that which is your psyche, your intellect, and coming to a place and saying, Dear God, tell me what it is I need to know, you're going to get answers. And it doesn't matter who your prophet is. I want to remind you that the masters and the prophets were all connected to the same source. And so they would come and say at this moment, honor each other. Honor those that you would never believe in as part of the creative source. Don't separate anymore. Come together and see the commonality from this very island over to the mainland. All of those thousands of years ago, literally, the process was the same. Human beings gathering and talking to an invisible source. Oh, they had names for them, it doesn't matter. But when they started trusting that which they could not see, no matter what system, no matter what doctrine, no matter what rules might have applied or not, or just men's rules, it didn't matter. Because God, Spirit, saw in them one with pure heart, one who was asking about the things they needed, and they received answers. You can see the results today in the writings, in the beauty and the elegance, the profundity of Greek history. And you can't say it came from mythology, which was nothing at all. You can only say it came from the creative source, which is the same one you are looking at today. This is a new energy. What are you now collectively in this area asking for? Is it remembrance? Is it peace with who you are? Is it to start a journey that you're not sure about? Or is it to extend one that you're not sure about? Have you brought issues and problems? Have you brought grief? I know who you are. And so does the Spirit. The same one that sat here and delivered so much energy and information and beauty and wisdom for so many years. Dear ones, there's a generic principle of love and compassion that looks beyond all of the trappings of superstition, of doctrine, of mythology, and sees the pure heart. Aren't you glad? That is the message. And that's why things worked the way they did. No matter what the names were given to the gods, no matter how dysfunctional they were, no matter what. It was humans looking to the invisible sources and asking, tell me what it is I need to know. Perhaps you might do the same. And then stand back, for you'll get answers. And so it is.
Close your eyes for just a moment, please. And breathe in. Breathe into the deepest place in your heart where that door is open and waiting for love, giving and receiving love. Breathing into your goddess heart, the heart that is full, the heart that receives, that gives, that experiences all emotions, and knows that the heart of the goddess lives inside of you. Sometimes she's a warrior, defending her tribe. Sometimes she's a healer. Sometimes she's giving birth to children, to new ideas. Sometimes we give birth to places inside of us that have been in the dark. So as you breathe in the light so that the messages of the day stand illuminated for you to discover.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Again, we celebrate this. We being that which is the creative source, spirit, whatever you think. We have described who Kryon is, what the energy is. Basically, it is the creative source which you all belong to, all of you. It is so difficult to explain to you the veil that keeps you from literally seeing your part in the universe. But it's there. And during your life, you get a chance to discover a little bit more about that, and it's so releasing for you to understand the big picture. And so we wish to do a review. But more than that, we have spoken of Greece, of Crete, where you sit now again with the wind blowing, the sound of the ocean, the beauty of nature, all of these things before your teaching begins. We've spoken of this. And now I want to speak of the bigger picture. There's a shift going on this planet that is real. Human beings are starting to have different kinds of thoughts and ideas. There's an increase of light. And it is creating so much change. It changes everything. And it's actually sneaking into business and to politics, to corporate, in so many ways. into social media in so many ways, into broadcast in so many ways. You're starting to see individual humans all over the planet have revelations, thinking different, becoming wiser, and at the same time, the black gets blacker. And what we mean by that, the definition of black at the moment is that which is dark energy. It seems to rise up to the occasion of light, does it not? Meaning that the greater the light, the more the darkness objects. And you're starting to see black and white on this planet reveal itself like it never did before. You all grew up in an energy where this darkness and this light coexisted in a way that seemed like it was all a hidden battle. The duality of the human being showed itself in this. And suddenly, since 2012, the shift begins. Now, it also begins internally. Old souls feel it first. And women are the ones in the old soul group who are starting to feel it even before that. It is because, dear ones, the gender that you celebrate today in the goddess group has always led the way in spiritual thinking. Always. You might wonder, what do men really think of women? I can tell you that, dear ones, because I am Kryon and I see it all. If you want to make a group of men weep, have them start talking about their mother. There is such an acknowledgement of the beauty, of the wisdom, of the love of mother. But what most of the men don't understand in that which is their culture is it never goes away. That women contain something that men do not. They are life givers. And they take care of humans. They know how. And in the caring is that which is the spiritual knowledge, ability to communicate, intuition, softness. And you had it in the beginning. And what you are having now, dear ones, is a return to remembrance of balance. The age is not about enhancing women. It's about enhancing balance so that once again, that which should be obvious will become obvious. Ladies, you are specialists in this. Specialists. This is just the beginning. In these first years of the shift after the precession of the equinoxes, it's just the beginning. Some of you here are seniors. And you may think quietly to yourselves, how does this work for me? I may not have 20 years, 30 years to work this puzzle like some of the other young women here. You will think to yourself, so why am I involved in this marvelous shift at this point in time? And I will tell you, because what you learn right now, today, and what you accept and take on to your heart will pass over into the next life. And you will awaken enhanced. And you will know your position. And you will keep going from there. This is the cycle, which is so important for all of you to understand. The age makes no difference. Because in this time, what you learn now goes into the Akash and continues when you return. Continues when you return. I want you to know that. It's not over when you pass. At some level, when you awaken as a woman, let's talk about that. At some level, when you awaken, you will remember the goddess part, which is really the shaman part. And you will remember the place that you have and the responsibility of it. What are the chances you will return as women? Let's talk about that. 100%. Because this is the way Spirit works. It has to be comfortable for you. We have talked about this before. Genders come in long groups. You come in one gender and you are lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, so it is comfortable. And the shift is in specific places to the other gender when it is required. And right now, what you're doing right now, it's required that you return as a woman. You'll be back comfortable in your gender, and you'll have the knowledge collected from this lifetime of who you are, why you're here. All of you are specialists. Some of you are teachers. Most are not. You are specialists in compassion, in teaching anyway. The planet looks at you differently and will, whether you're with your children or your friends. A shamanic energy is obvious. It's a wise energy. Listen, it's also a joyful one. How are you doing there? If you are happy in your own skin, if you know who you are, no matter what the problems of life, you can always find the joy and smile and say, I am a piece of God here on purpose. Can you do that? Are you learning that? Specialists, all of you. Specialists in celebration, in realizing the camaraderie that shamans have with shamans. Listen, in the old days, dear ladies, the shaman was isolated and was a hermit, and that is going to change. In Lemuria, there was none of that. We talked about that. Perhaps my partner will share that later. It was never a hermit. The men and the women respected one another for what they could offer on the planet, and the women offered spiritual advice, and they were the ones who the men went to, willingly, happily. That can return. In fact, a higher consciousness of civilization will demand it return slowly. You'll see it. Changes in the church, changes in other spiritual systems, changes just in what the public perceives. It's not about women's rights. It's about the energy you carry that is self-evident and obvious to all. That's where it's going. That's what you're learning. And it will be done comfortably, slowly, not with revolution and not with armies, but with compassion. And you're right at the start of it. I want you to understand that. It's not just for today. This is for the rest of your earth years. Millenniums from now. What you learn now will be the planted seeds that you will carry with you. That's the difference between yesterday and today. Let the teaching begin. And so it is.
E ho mai, ka ike mai, luna mai e. O nā mea huna no e au. O nā mele. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, ka ike mai, luna mai e. O nā mea huna no e au, o nā mele, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, ka ike mai, luna mai e. O nā mea huna no e au, o nā mele, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, e. Mahalo nui loa.
Goddesses, gods, feel this earth talk to you today. Feel the trees, the ancient trees, talk to you today. Hear the birds talk to you today. Remember hearing them before. Do you remember? Drop deep inside to that well of remembrance and let yourself feel those days, those times when you were honored, when you were the spiritual, purposeful goddess here with your people, guiding them, loving them, and them loving you. This is the place. This is the time for you to return and remember and feel the energy of light. Thousands of years later, the light that you bring clears everything that was not light and brings light again to this land and to your lives. So take a big breath in of this cleansing light. Release it into this land, to this place. Take another breath. Here we are, one light.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. It is a beautiful day. You sit in the island of Crete, an ancient palace, and the sun and the weather is glorious. Dear ones, I want you to use this so you're comfortable with this message, so there are no distractions. The message today is about ancient ones and current ones. There is so much that you can take from this place. There is so much learning here. If you compare what is here to what is now in your life, and we're going to do that. First, we love to give comments on the comments. Where you sit in this ancient place, you're told about the master builders. Thousands of years ago, you're told about the fact that they had running water. You're seeing for yourself the validation of what we told you earlier. This civilization, modern, respected women, high consciousness, beautiful art, even music. And we told you that this was indeed the forerunner to civilization on Europe. And it happened on an island. You see this for yourself with your own eyes as you connect the dots of what we have been telling you about the propensity of Lemurians. And here you are sitting in this place, in this island, and there's a lot to see. This was a grand civilization, and they were very smart. You are told that part of the destruction here, after all of these years, they can still see it was destroyed by fire. I have something to tell you, dear ones. I want to connect the dots with something. This was not a surprise. This was one of many fires. When you use oil for light and you have earthquakes, don't you believe a civilization of this intelligence would prepare for it and be able to put it out and expect it? And that is indeed the case. Many fires occurred here. In fact, it was common for fires to occur in many civilizations in towns where all they had was oil for light and a ground that shook on a regular basis. But what I want to really remind you of is something for you to really look at. I want you to see something. You've been told that this is the birthplace of the mythological god Zeus. You have heard the story and the puzzle many times. What was first, the chicken or the egg? How can you have a god born? If the god is a god, you wouldn't think it would have to have a mother or a father. In this particular case, Kronos and Rhea were part of the elements, part of the stars, part of the earth itself. So you might say that the Greeks selected Zeus to be born of Gaia. Therefore, you take a look at something that is unique to the linearity of humans. Now, I want you to pay attention, because in this short message, we're going to talk about applying what I tell you now to your personal life. The Greeks looked around, and everything they saw was themselves. Earth was seeming to be isolated. They didn't know the dynamics of solar systems yet. They simply saw a backdrop in the sky that moved. We've said it before, everything moved around them. The stars moved around them. Even identification of the planets, the constellations, it was all part of Earth. There was no concept that Earth was part of something bigger. Therefore, everything was drawn into itself. The sun and the moon, placed and moved eventually in mythology by the gods. And so they only saw that which they then applied to themselves. So the god Zeus being born of Earth or the planet means that it came from their central source. The highest power they had was the planet. They could have any time postulized perhaps what later Galileo saw. They could have done the math, and they were good at it, and figured out they were part of something bigger, but they did not. Now I want to ask about you in this short message. Dear ones, that's exactly what many humans are doing today. All they have is themselves. There's nothing bigger. Everything is pulled to you. If something beautiful happens to you, you call it luck. If you've had a string of things which were challenges on this planet, you look at that and you say, woe is me, it's just luck. Everything centers around you. All of the senses that you have, of course, are yours. And you feel the earth and what is around you by those senses. And most of humanity will walk around and they are their own planet. And they never look at anything bigger or higher or anything that is possible other than themselves. I want to introduce you to something. You are part of a whole. Later it was discovered that Earth was part of something grand and that everything moved. And the Earth moved around many things. You are the same. You really are. You don't need to have a consciousness which is your God. You don't have to have that which is false before you or mythological before you in order to make sense of your own life. Consciousness is now grown up and higher, and you can look around and you can see there is no luck, there is synchronicity, and that your consciousness actually can control how you move. You move around others and others move around you in ways that are beautiful, and you can plan it and you can see it. There is so much here. There is a grander energy within you. If only the Greeks had known that there was something bigger than the earth. But instead they thought everything belonged to the earth, even the sun, which walked across the sky on a regular basis. Dear ones, there's things walking across your life on a regular basis, and you don't even know it. There's a majesty. There are entities. There are divas in the forest. There are things around you that in older days they would even say are magic. And all of this available today when you start claiming the Creator inside. So much you can do. You might even say you're your own goddess and Greek god together. You might even say that you are your own Zeus. This is what you have. But you must start looking outward instead of inward for evidence. And when you see it, you can then turn inward to find the Creator inside. We have told you so many times that the real peace of all things that you desire, the healing, is inside you. But what is inside you represents a grand exterior of things that move around in the sky. All of this to say, dear ones, there is no mystery of why things happen the way they do. And the sooner you can realize this, the sooner you can be empowered as a human being and be that which you desire, one who controls your own life and everything around it, inside and out. The message of Kryon doesn't change much, does it? But those who hear it are starting to realize the truth of it and connecting the dots. I want you to celebrate everything that is here that you see. It's a forerunner to civilization starting to return to peace, to where women are seen in the position they should be in. You sit in it. And so it is.
Here we are again, goddesses. Here we are back to the temple of the goddess. So take a moment to drop inside. Close your eyes, please. And let each breath connect to the wind coming up from one side of the valley, blowing across the great settlement, touching the tree. See that beautiful tree in your mind and the wind blowing through it. And your energy touching it, thanking it, wrapping around it from the top to the bottom and going into the roots of that ancient tree to a time older than that tree, to a time when we celebrated ourselves as the divine feminine, as the sacred goddess. Do you see us there dancing? Do you see us there carrying lights? Do you see us there healing? Feel the energy around you and know that each one of us touched the hand, touched the life of another in that ancient, distant time. And the wind says yes, as we say yes in our hearts, as we say yes in our DNA that resonates with the rocks here, with the time, with the water, with the ancient ones that keep watch over this site until we are back again.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Listen to the wind. Some of you know that through the ages, the wind actually has a message. Even long before the ancients were here, the wind was here. What could it tell you about what has happened in this place? Archaeology is a mystery, and one does the best they can in a modern world to figure out an ancient one. And there are many schools of thought about what happens in many places. Some are convinced of one thing, others are convinced of another. Sometimes logic prevails and sometimes it doesn't. It's up to the human being to figure out exactly what took place. You are at a place where the famous disc was found in Crete. It's a mystery, for it contains that which cannot be deciphered completely. It's obvious that it is different. Some say it doesn't belong here. Let me tell you two groups of thought to show you just how varied humans can be. One group will say, obviously, it has come from another planet. Someone came down and gave it to the ancients. Another group, on the opposite end of the scale, will say it's simply a birth announcement from a foreign land. And that's why there's only one. Delivered to royalty from royalty, and they kept it. And it was discovered and examined for its profundity. This is archaeology. It makes it so interesting as you go from place to place to see what humans did. And as we have said in many channels, what you see here in Crete is an advanced civilization, elegant in thought, with high ideals and science of building. We've also drawn the connection to other civilizations that may have come before. But now I want to draw a bigger one. I would love to continue the channel of yesterday. Yesterday we asked you a question. Is it possible that around you is a bigger system? That you're not self-contained? That indeed circling around you are energies and things that are way beyond that which is obvious? I want to continue that right now. And we're going to start by looking at something that most human beings never think of. You sit in a beautiful earth. It's not volatile. It is beautiful. The wind is blowing, the sun is shining, it's peaceful. Many of you have even hugged a tree today. And yet everywhere you look, there are signs of volative action that is so amazing you can't even think of it. Where mountains shot up where mountains were never before. Where plate tectonics worked so that an ocean was here way before you were. The earth has a very volatile history. And yet today it is peaceful. Human beings think, well, it's time for it to be peaceful. Or perhaps it happens so slowly that it's still volatile, but you can't tell. Dear ones, let me tell you the truth. This planet is like a fine cooked meal. And when it was ready, it settled down for you. You don't see what you used to see. We stood at a famous place called the Grand Canyon on another continent. Archaeologists, geologists look at it. They make up their minds. And I've told you that it was cut very fast, within 300 years. Things are not always as they seem when it comes to geology or even archaeology. The earth literally was prepared for you over eons and eons of time. And now it sits here in its quietness, occasionally shaking, but nothing like it used to be. Nothing at all. The wind has a message. It is agreeing and celebrating with the fact that this planet has been prepared to be peaceful for you. Now I want to extend this by asking you some questions about your own system, that of the human being. The first thing I want to ask is this. Ancient spiritual systems all over the planet have looked at the possibility that the human soul is forever and that it expresses itself in incarnations of humanity. In other words, what you call past life and we call soul renewal. The question is, does it exist? You have to answer this in your own mind before we continue. You may say, well, I'm not certain. May I tell you, dear ones, no human is certain, because no human being can prove it. And yet the intuition of it is worldwide. Again, we say to you, 80% of the earth believes in the afterlife. It is a common theme all through history. Do you believe it? You must cognize this in order to continue, even with this discussion. I sit in a group called Goddesses, self-named today, on a tour that expresses the celebration of these things. But I'm also aware that even in the tour, not all believe it. So I ask you yet again, what do you think? Do you think perhaps that your human soul is eternal? That it has come and gone many, many times. It may even have put you here, especially if you're Greek. That is how potent and profound the system is. So question one, if you answered it yes, I believe this is the way things work. The next question should be obvious. Is it random? You look at nature and you say, well, all around you, you see random things. They're not structured, they're not necessarily linear, and yet they're anything but random. Anything. There is a beautiful system here. It is a slow one, but there is a system. There is a symbiosis. There is oxygen, carbon dioxide for you and for the plants, for the animals. It's beautiful and it's balanced, but it seems random. So I'm asking you as question 2, do you think that the past lives you've had as one soul are random, or is there a plan? Some of you will say, well, I'm not sure. So let me tell you something. Dear ones, not only a plan, but a grand one. One that places you at the right time in the right place. If you allow it, you can see it all. Not only just be aware of it, but participate in it. So I would like to tell you something a little more about that plan. One soul, many lifetimes. We have told you that soul belongs to the Creator. It is not an earth soul. And you know that. You might even say in this place it belongs to the gods. You'd be right, the one God. You are part of everything. The earth is not apart from you. You are all that is with all that is. And so I want you to think about this for a moment and connect some dots. When you leave this planet corporally, in death, your soul remains. We've asked you before, do you have any idea of what might happen when you're not here? And I'll tell you what happens. You plan the next incarnation. Hardly random, is it? You sit in a place that you planned. All that you see here, you have allowed. The synchronicity of being here in this place, of hearing my voice, of being here on this planet in your gender, has all been you with you. Dear ones, there are so many of you who would say, I would never have planned what happened to me. It's not what happened to you that was planned. It's you being here that was planned. You have free choice to work around anything you experience. But you being here in this life, right now, at this age, learning what you are learning, is all part of a synchronistic plan that you created. You looked upon this planet and you said, there's the potential that I'll awaken with a greater awareness of who I am. Could it be, old soul, that everything you're experiencing right now, at some level, your soul saw in advance? And if that's the case, what are you going to call that soul of yours? Your higher self is you. It's the wise you. It's the intelligent you. It's the spiritual you. And it asks you right now if you want to join it or not. Why are some of you remaining apart from a higher consciousness of your own soul? That's the linearity of humanity that keeps you seeing a bigger picture. The earth has finished its meal and prepared it so you can sit here and enjoy the peace without rumbling mountains and seas that move back and forth and oceans that move All of that is done. Why not have the volatility of your life be done? Why not have the drama over with and start to have the light come out? We have said before, in a black and white earth, color is coming. And I'm going to tell you, in many places, it's already here. The ancients who were right here had a peaceful civilization that honored women. There's a lot to remember here, and it's time. And so it is.